Did you know that Hollywood icons like Bette Davis and Joan Crawford clashed over stolen lovers, and James Kagny once walked off set for lack of fresh orange juice? In the golden age of cinema, even the pettiest issues sparked legendary grudges. From stolen bathrobes to feuds over film posters today, we are going to talk about old Hollywood legends, absurd feuds that reveal how the smallest slights ignited epic clashes. Bette Davis versus Joan Crawford. Bette Davis and Joan Crawford clashed with a ferocity that defined their careers, a rivalry born of ambition and wounded pride. In lavish Hollywood mansions and on crowded studio lots, accusations flew regarding stolen lovers and coveted roles. Davis, known for her fearless portrayals and piercing intensity, found herself constantly compared to the glamorous Crawford, whose commanding presence and bold style captured the public's adoration. Rumors swirled that Crawford had encroached on Davis's romantic territory, with whispered allegations that a shared lover had ignited the spark of discord between these titans. Periodicals of the era, including noted trade journals and celebrity biographies, recounted heated backstage encounters and snide public remarks exchanged at industry events. Reports from New York and Los Angeles detailed how a chance meeting at a private party escalated into a verbal battle, with Davis accusing Crawford of stealing not only roles, but the very essence of what it meant to be an actress of substance. The tension grew when casting decisions in several high-profile films seemed to mirror the personal animosity, as Davis's roles were suddenly reassigned, while Crawford enjoyed newfound attention. Studio insiders noted that the feud had reached such a fever pitch that even directors hesitated to work with either star, fearing that any project might become the battleground for their personal vendettas. Although neither actress publicly acknowledged the full extent of their acrimony, the persistent whispers in the corridors of Hollywood studios left an indelible mark on the era. Their rivalry, interwoven with the fabric of cinematic history, remains a potent reminder of how personal grievances could transform into legendary clashes on the silver screen. Frank Sinatra versus Peter Lofford. Frank Sinatra's simmering resentment toward Peter Lofford erupted from an incident that took place in a luxurious mansion on a crisp winter evening. The celebrated crooner, whose velvety voice and cool demeanor captivated millions, was known for his imposing presence both on stage and off. Lofford, an elegant figure of high society, had once been invited to spend a weekend at Sinatra's renowned residence, a gesture that was meant to cement a bond between two leading personalities of the silver screen. However, the planned reunion took a dramatic turn when political intrigues and personal ambitions intermingled. On that fateful weekend, it was reported that an important visit from an influential political figure was abruptly canceled due to suspicions surrounding Sinatra's alleged mob ties. Lofford, caught in the crossfire of this tangled web of connections, was left to shoulder the blame for the misstep. Confidential memos from studio executives and newspaper columns from the time detailed the atmosphere of tension that ensued after the cancellation. Lofford's calm public persona belied an inner turmoil as he navigated the fallout from the incident. Subsequent interviews with industry veterans recounted how Sinatra's cold shoulder and curt dismissals became a recurring theme in social gatherings. At glamorous parties and high-profile charity events, the two men found themselves locked in silent duels of disapproval, each exchange fueling an already volatile rivalry. Detailed reports from the era highlight how such disputes were not uncommon in an industry where personal relationships were as fragile as they were public. The fallout from that fateful weekend was etched into the annals of Hollywood lore, serving as a reminder of how a single night could alter the course of two illustrious careers. Marlon Brando versus Frank Sinatra. Marlon Brando's reputation for unpredictable behavior on set collided with Frank Sinatra's demand for perfection, sparking a feud that became the talk of Hollywood circles. The air on the set of a major production was thick with tension, as Brando, renowned for his enigmatic performances, began a seemingly trivial yet infuriating habit of humming during Sinatra's meticulously timed scenes. The unusual noise, described in various studio memos as an incessant, distracting murmur, was enough to unsettle the veteran singer and actor. Industry insiders recall that on a chilly February morning in 1955, as the cameras rolled and the director called for multiple takes, Sinatra's irritation mounted with each stray note emanating from Brando. Critics in The Hollywood Reporter and Variety noted that the humming was perceived as a deliberate affront, a subtle yet piercing reminder of Brando's irreverence for established protocols. The clash was not merely about noise, but represented a deeper ideological divide between two styles of performance. Sinatra, whose career had been built on a foundation of discipline, timing, and control, saw the behavior as undermining the professional decorum expected on set. His famous retort, captured in a now-classic interview, hinted that the humming was nothing short of an assault on the art of performance. Brando, on the other hand, maintained a demeanor of nonchalance, insisting that the humming was merely an unconscious habit born out of his unique creative process. Studio records from that period reveal that the feud extended beyond the confines of the film set, seeping into after-hours conversations and gossip columns. The tension between the two icons was palpable, a testament to the broader conflicts between tradition and innovation that defined the golden era of cinema. Their clash, trivial on the surface, yet profound in its implications, left a lasting mark on the dynamics of star-studded productions. Tula Bankhead versus Bette Davis. Tula Bankhead's flamboyant presence and unapologetic wit were legendary, yet a simmering rivalry with Bette Davis emerged from an unexpected battle of mimicry. The roots of the dispute lay in the subtle art of imitation, where each icon perceived the other as encroaching on their unique style. Bankhead, whose theatrical flair and sharp tongue were celebrated in headline news and society columns, felt that Davis had adopted mannerisms that were distinctly her own. In lavish Hollywood salons and the glittering corridors of radio studios, whispers of mockery and deliberate mimicry spread rapidly. Davis, known for her intense, brooding performances and iconic roles, was accused of imitating Bankhead's eccentric expressions and dramatic pauses. Reports from behind-the-scenes meetings described how Bankhead's aides and confidants noted a striking similarity between the expressions Davis displayed during interviews and those that Bankhead had popularized on stage. Industry memoirs and detailed accounts from prominent entertainment journalists revealed that the tension reached a crescendo during the filming of a high-budget period drama in the late 1940s. On a crisp autumn afternoon in Los Angeles, the two leading ladies were seen exchanging icy glances during a public appearance, an unspoken acknowledgement of the mounting rivalry. Both actresses, celebrated for their indomitable spirits and larger-than-life personas, found themselves locked in an unyielding contest for supremacy on and off screen. The conflict was chronicled in numerous biographies and retrospective articles, each offering vivid portrayals of the bitter feud that had divided Hollywood elites. Though neither Bankhead nor Davis ever publicly reconciled their differences, the subtle undercurrents of rivalry influenced casting decisions and media portrayals for years to come. Their ongoing dispute, rooted in a battle of styles and egos, remains one of the most peculiar chapters in the storied history of the film industry. Greta Garbo versus Marlene Dietrich. Greta Garbo and Marlene Dietrich were two enigmatic figures whose mutual disdain took root during a chance encounter at an exclusive party in the early 1930s. The air in the lavish ballroom of a European chateau was filled with glittering conversation and clandestine glances when an offhand remark escalated into a bitter snub. Garbo, known for her reticent mystique and ethereal presence, found herself unexpectedly insulted by Dietrich's brazen humor and flamboyant charm. Observers at the event later recounted how Dietrich, with a sparkle in her eye and a sly smile, dismissed Garbo's subtle advances with a remark that cut deep into the quiet star's famed reserve. This isolated moment in a glittering European soiree sparked a feud that would persist for decades, transcending the boundaries of language and culture. Contemporary newspaper columns and memoirs by close associates of both actresses recalled how the snub led to an unspoken rivalry that colored subsequent encounters. Later gatherings in Paris and Berlin bore the weight of this long-standing animosity, as Dietrich's outspoken style clashed with Garbo's reserved elegance. Detailed accounts from Hollywood insiders painted a picture of two women whose paths crossed repeatedly in glamorous settings, each meeting fraught with a tension that seemed to defy reconciliation. Despite their shared status as cinematic icons, the feud between Garbo and Dietrich became emblematic of the contrasting personas that defined the era. Their careers, meticulously chronicled in film history books and celebrated retrospectives, were inextricably linked to this peculiar personal conflict. The subtle battle of glances and guarded words echoed through the corridors of film studios and European salons, ensuring that the legacy of their rivalry would remain etched in Hollywood lore for generations. Olivia de Havilland versus Joan Fontaine. The long-standing and bitter feud between Olivia de Havilland and Joan Fontaine was steeped in familial discord and cinematic destiny. Born into the same family and separated by years of professional rivalry, the two sisters found their relationship marred by accusations of preferential treatment and personal betrayal. It is recounted in numerous biographies and Hollywood histories that a particular incident at a star-studded awards ceremony became the catalyst for decades of estrangement. In a glamorous hall filled with luminaries of the film industry, a simple handshake was transformed into a public snub that echoed through the corridors of power in Tinseltown. Fontaine, who enjoyed the benefits of a more understated career, was rumored to have been overshadowed by de Havilland's commanding presence and assertive demeanor. Industry reports from the late 1940s detailed how the sisters exchanged cold, measured glances at post-ceremony gatherings, their silent hostility speaking louder than any words. Critics and commentators of the era noted that the underlying tension was more than mere sibling rivalry. It was a reflection of the competitive nature of Hollywood itself. Detailed accounts from trusted sources recounted heated arguments over roles, personal sacrifices, and the intricate dynamics of family loyalty versus professional ambition. The personal feud between de Havilland and Fontaine was often cited in columns and interviews, a case study in how personal relationships could be as dramatic as any on-screen narrative. Though attempts at reconciliation were made in private, the public feud endured, leaving a complex legacy that continues to fascinate biographers and film historians alike. Their tumultuous relationship, marked by love and resentment in equal measure, remains one of the most intriguing and tragic sagas of Hollywood's golden era. Ava Gardner versus Lana Turner. Ava Gardner and Lana Turner found themselves locked in a dispute that centered on matters of the heart and the pursuit of a charismatic bandleader. The tension ignited when both actresses, celebrated for their captivating beauty and magnetic screen presence, vied for the affections of a prominent musical figure whose charm was as legendary as his talent. In the early 1950s, as whispers of their secret liaison spread through the hallowed corridors of Hollywood studios, the rivalry took on an almost operatic quality. Newspaper headlines and entertainment columns chronicled the scandalous affair in vivid detail, capturing the public's imagination and fueling an insatiable appetite for gossip. Reports from exclusive parties and high society gatherings describe how Turner's elegant grace and refined demeanor were pitted against Gardner's raw sensuality and daring allure. The rivalry was marked by a series of pointed public comments and subtle digs in interviews, as each actress defended her honor and position. Industry insiders recalled heated conversations in private dressing rooms, where assistants and stylists discussed the ramifications of the scandal for the actresses' careers. Biographical accounts from the era reveal that the bandleader, known for his magnetic presence and sweeping charm, remained an elusive figure, untouched by the fiery competition. As the feud escalated, studio executives began to worry about the potential impact on upcoming film projects. The intricate web of personal vendettas and romantic entanglements created a landscape of tension and intrigue that echoed through Hollywood's glitzy parties and movie sets. Ultimately, the rivalry between Gardner and Turner would be etched into the annals of celebrity lore, a vivid example of how passion and rivalry could intertwine to shape destinies in the golden age of cinema. Errol Flynn versus David Niven. Errol Flynn and David Niven's feud began over a seemingly trivial matter that soon spiraled into an enduring battle of wounded pride and misplaced expectations. The incident, recounted in memoirs and documented in studio archives, revolved around a cherished personal item, a luxurious robe that Flynn prized as a symbol of his flamboyant lifestyle. The story unfolds on the set of a major swashbuckler film in the mid-1940s, where the dashing actor entrusted his prized garment to a fellow actor without explicit instructions for its safe return. Niven, whose impeccable manners and refined persona were well documented in leading entertainment magazines, inadvertently failed to return the robe promptly. Insiders later recalled that Flynn's reaction was one of exaggerated indignation, as he felt that the act symbolized a deeper betrayal of trust. In whispered conversations among crew members and in confidential memos circulating among studio executives, the stolen robe became a metaphor for personal honor and the fragile egos of Hollywood's elite. Detailed accounts from that period describe how the wardrobe mishap escalated into a series of public and private snubs. Flynn, known for his larger-than-life presence both on and off-screen, would often make cutting remarks in interviews that alluded to the incident, while Niven maintained a dignified silence that only fueled speculation. Reports in the press, some citing anonymous sources from within the studio, painted a picture of a feud that had grown beyond the original triviality. The episode, recounted with increasing embellishment over the years, came to symbolize the delicate balance between personal property and professional pride in an industry built on appearances. Although time eventually softened the edges of the dispute, the memory of the lost robe and the ensuing rivalry endured as a curious footnote in the annals of classic Hollywood. Lucille Ball versus Daisy Arnaz. Lucille Ball and Daisy Arnaz found themselves embroiled in a bitter post-divorce dispute that took an absurd turn over a seemingly inconsequential object, a custom-made studio golf cart. The origins of the quarrel traced back to a period of intense media scrutiny and shifting personal fortunes following the end of a once revered partnership. As documented in various Hollywood chronicles and extensively recounted in retrospective interviews, the disagreement began when disagreements over property rights emerged during the division of assets. The golf cart, painted a vivid red and emblazoned with the studio's insignia, had become a symbol of a bygone era of shared success and personal compromise. Sources from the time noted that the object of contention was more than mere transportation. It represented the lasting influence of the couple's creative collaboration. Detailed newspaper features and insider reports reveal that every public appearance was marked by a pointed reference to the disputed cart, a subtle yet relentless reminder of fractured dreams. Industry analysts and biographers later interpreted the incident as emblematic of how personal belongings could acquire legendary status in the eyes of a star-stricken public. The feud was punctuated by hushed telephone conversations between agents and the exchange of terse letters, each message steeped in an air of finality and wounded pride. Even as the film projects continued and the studio lights burned on, the shadow of the golf cart dispute loomed large, offering a glimpse into the deep-seated resentments that lingered long after the final curtain had fallen. The peculiar nature of the argument underscored how trivial items could morph into symbols of lost unity and persistent rivalry, forever etched in the storied history of classic cinema. Vivien Leigh versus Laurence Olivier. Vivien Leigh and Laurence Olivier engaged in a profound dispute that centered on contrasting philosophies of acting and stagecraft. The origins of the conflict, documented in meticulous biographies and historical reviews of theatrical productions, date back to the early 1940s when both icons were at the zenith of their artistic prowess. Leigh, celebrated for her emotive intensity and delicate vulnerability, often employed an approach that critics hailed as revolutionary. Olivier, with his commanding presence and classical training, upheld a tradition that valued disciplined precision and grandiloquent delivery. The tension between the two was first noted during a production of a celebrated classic, where onlookers observed that their differing methods clashed like discordant notes in an otherwise harmonious performance. Trade journals from the period recounted that backstage encounters between Leigh and Olivier were marked by terse remarks and subtle barbs, as each championed his or her own vision of what constituted true artistry. Contemporary critics and seasoned stage managers described the rivalry as more than a simple difference in technique. It was a battle for the very soul of modern theater. In detailed accounts of the production's run, it was noted that both performers adhered rigidly to their own methods, refusing to compromise even when urged by directors to find common ground. The ensuing public debate, captured in columns of leading newspapers, reflected a broader cultural conversation about innovation versus tradition in the performing arts. Although both Leigh and Olivier continued to command critical acclaim throughout their careers, the scars of their artistic rivalry remained, whispered about in the hallowed halls of theater schools and immortalized in film documentaries. Their enduring conflict, documented in scholarly works and personal memoirs, stands as a testament to the relentless pursuit of artistic perfection amidst the pressures of public expectation. James Kagny versus Warner Brothers studio heads. James Kagny's legendary temper and uncompromising demands for authenticity on set were matched only by the exasperation of Warner Brothers studio executives, leading to a feud that took root over a matter as trivial as fresh orange juice. It was an early morning in 1943 on a bustling studio lot when Kagny's insistence on having freshly squeezed juice became a flashpoint. The actor, renowned for his rapid-fire delivery and electrifying screen presence, believed that every detail of his performance demanded perfection, even in the small comforts provided on set. Confidential memos and studio records from the time indicate that Kagny's repeated demands for the finest quality citrus were met with irritation by executives who dismissed the request as an unnecessary indulgence. As the production schedule pressed on, tensions escalated when the supply of the coveted beverage dwindled to a level deemed insufficient for the star's exacting standards. Trade journals from the era documented how Kagny's on-set outbursts, sparked by what some insiders later described as a minor oversight, grew into a full-blown controversy that threatened to derail the filming of a major motion picture. Directors and co-stars recounted the atmosphere of charged anticipation that pervaded the set, where every extra and technician was aware that the smallest lapse could provoke the actor's notorious temper. Industry anecdotes detail how the fresh orange juice incident soon became the subject of after-hours discussions among the studio staff, symbolizing the clash between artistic ideals and practical studio management. While the dispute over citrus supply eventually subsided, the incident was immortalized in the annals of Hollywood history as a quintessential example of how even the most trivial matters could ignite legendary feuds among cinema's most formidable personalities. Katherine Hepburn versus Ginger Rogers. Katherine Hepburn's steadfast determination and uncompromising sense of artistic identity collided with the elegant poise of Ginger Rogers in a rivalry fueled by accusations of stolen roles and press attention. In the bustling corridors of 1940s Hollywood, the two stars' paths crossed in ways that set off a chain reaction of heated exchanges and pointed remarks. Hepburn, celebrated for her bold, independent characters and rapid-fire wit, was known to view any encroachment on her creative territory as an affront to her legacy. Rogers, whose graceful dance routines and magnetic screen presence enchanted audiences worldwide, was equally protective of her public image. Detailed reports in periodicals and entertainment columns of the time recounted that Hepburn believed Rogers had subtly appropriated not only key film roles, but also the glowing media coverage that Hepburn had painstakingly cultivated over years of rigorous work. Studio insiders and close associates later recalled instances where Hepburn's comments, delivered in hushed yet biting tones during private gatherings, reflected a simmering resentment over what she perceived as Rogers's opportunistic maneuvers. The media of the era captured every subtle hint of discord, reporting on the rivalry with a mix of fascination and incredulity. Interviews with prominent film critics and historians reveal that the conflict was emblematic of the broader struggles between emerging modernity and established traditions in cinema. Though both actresses continued to receive critical acclaim and maintain vast legacies, the personal feud between Hepburn and Rogers provided a window into the competitive spirit that defined the golden age of Hollywood. The tension between them, recorded in countless biographies and retrospective analyses, remains a vivid illustration of how ambition and pride could transform professional rivalry into a full-blown personal battle. Charlie Chaplan versus Douglas Fairbanks. Charlie Chaplan and Douglas Fairbanks experienced an acrimonious split that transcended their legendary status in silent film, igniting a feud that resonated far beyond the confines of the studio lot. In the early decades of cinema, the two pioneers were celebrated for their innovative contributions to the art of storytelling through movement and expression. Yet, as the film industry evolved, a failed business venture and bruised egos led to a deep-seated discord between the two icons. Chaplan, whose timeless character of the tramp had captured the hearts of millions, became increasingly critical of Fairbanks' insistence on maintaining an image of unassailable charm and physical prowess. Archival reports from the era and first-hand accounts from close colleagues reveal that a contentious partnership dissolved over disagreements about artistic direction and financial management. At a grand Hollywood gala held in 1928, a heated exchange between the two was witnessed by prominent figures in the industry, their words charged with a mixture of bitterness and disappointment. Newspapers and film magazines of the period reported that the fallout was not merely about money, but also about the clash of philosophies in an industry undergoing rapid transformation. Fairbanks, admired for his swashbuckling heroics, was portrayed as emblematic of the old guard, while Chaplan's more introspective and socially conscious films heralded a new era. The ensuing rift was chronicled in detailed memoirs and industry journals, providing a glimpse into the fragile dynamics of early cinematic partnerships. Although both men eventually continued their respective careers with great success, the echoes of their failed collaboration and ensuing feud remain a potent reminder of the intricate interplay between personal ambition and the relentless march of creative innovation in Hollywood's formative years. Clark Gable versus William Powell. Clark Gable's commanding presence and undeniable star power clashed with William Powell's refined elegance over a dispute that began with a contentious movie poster. In the mid-1930s, as studios invested heavily in marketing their leading men, a promotional poster for a highly anticipated film ignited a rivalry that would soon capture the attention of gossip columnists and film critics alike. Gable, renowned for his rugged charm and magnetic intensity, was incensed when Powell's image was granted top billing on the poster, a decision that many insiders later described as a slight against Gable's established reputation as the quintessential leading man. Studio memos and internal communications from the period reveal that the decision was made in haste by a junior executive who was unaware of the delicate balance of star power in an era where image was everything. Public appearances and press conferences soon became battlegrounds for subtle digs and guarded comments, with Gable's representatives insisting that the poster misrepresented the film's star hierarchy. Detailed analyses in industry journals and retrospective film studies noted that the incident reflected broader tensions within the studio system, where creative decisions often sparked unintended rivalries among marquee talent. The controversy was further fueled by interviews in popular magazines, where both actors, while maintaining a veneer of professionalism, offered ambiguous statements that only deepened the intrigue. The poster debacle, though seemingly trivial in isolation, became emblematic of the competitive fervor that defined Hollywood's golden age. As the film premiered to roaring applause and critical acclaim, the undercurrents of discord between Gable and Powell remained a subtle yet persistent part of the narrative of star-studded productions. The conflict, documented in film history texts and personal recollections of contemporaries, stands as a testament to how even a single marketing decision could ignite a rivalry that resonated far beyond the silver screen. Judy Garland versus Ann Miller. Judy Garland and Ann Miller found their on-set rivalry erupt into a memorable feud that centered on the art of tap dancing and the intensity of performance. In the bustling studio backlots of the early 1940s, where every movement was scrutinized by directors and critics alike, Garland's insistence on precision clashed sharply with Miller's exuberant style. The catalyst for the dispute was a tap routine during the production of a musical extravaganza, when Miller's energetic performance was deemed excessively loud by Garland's exacting standards. Trade publications and detailed studio records from that period reveal that Garland had privately expressed her frustration over what she perceived as a disruption of the artistic flow on set. Industry insiders noted that the argument was not merely about volume or technique, but symbolized a broader conflict between different interpretations of the musical form. In an era when every tap step was choreographed to perfection, the deviation from the expected norm was enough to spark bitter discussions among the cast and crew. Newspaper columns and personal diaries of crew members recounted how the incident became a recurring theme during rehearsals and in between takes. Although both actresses continued to shine in their respective careers, the tension from that fateful day lingered, subtly affecting the dynamics of subsequent productions. Biographers and film historians have since documented the feud as a classic example of how even minor differences in artistic vision could lead to lasting disputes in the high-pressure environment of Hollywood's golden era. The legacy of that altercation, woven into the fabric of studio lore, remains a striking illustration of the intense passion that drove some of the era's most talented performers. Joan Blondell versus Glenda Farrell. Joan Blondell and Glenda Farrell engaged in a heated contest to claim the title of the fastest-talking dame, a rivalry that unfolded with rapid-fire exchanges and relentless one-upmanship. In the frenetic atmosphere of early sound films, where dialogue delivery was as critical as physical performance, the competition between Blondell and Farrell grew from playful banter into a bitter rivalry. The spark was ignited on the set of a popular screwball comedy in the mid-1930s, where both actresses delivered their lines with a speed and precision that delighted audiences and set new standards in verbal wit. Industry reports from the time described how the two stars would often be found in spirited debates during breaks between takes, each vying to outdo the other with rapid quips and clever retorts. Trade journals and personal memoirs of directors recount that the duel was not confined to the sound stage. Their off-screen encounters at glamorous parties and studio luncheons were equally charged with competitive energy. Critics in renowned entertainment magazines noted that the rivalry represented more than just a quest for supremacy in dialogue delivery. It was emblematic of the shifting dynamics in a film industry that was rapidly evolving with the advent of sound. As both actresses continued to captivate audiences with their unique styles, the underlying tension between them persisted, fueling a narrative of rivalry that became legendary in Hollywood lore. Detailed accounts in biographies and retrospectives on the golden age of cinema emphasized that the feud between Blondell and Farrell was as much about pride and professionalism as it was about personal animosity. Their ongoing battle, marked by razor-sharp exchanges and a mutual refusal to back down, remains an enduring chapter in the story of classic film. Debbie Reynolds versus Elizabeth Taylor. Debbie Reynolds and Elizabeth Taylor became embroiled in a scandal that revolved around the high-profile romance with the famed Eddie Fisher. In a period when Hollywood relationships were scrutinized with almost surgical precision, the spark of rivalry was fanned into a conflagration of tabloid headlines and relentless media attention. Reynolds, known for her sparkling charm and wholesome screen presence, was publicly affronted when Taylor's involvement with Fisher emerged in scandalous detail. Industry insiders documented that the romance not only disrupted established social circles, but also redefined the boundaries of personal loyalty and public expectation. Newspaper columns and Hollywood gossip reports from the late 1950s detailed how the romance unfolded, with dramatic twists and subtle accusations. Sources close to both stars recounted moments when a heated confrontation occurred at a lavish studio event, with Reynolds' supporters arguing that Taylor had intruded into a space reserved for a different era of Hollywood elegance. Interviews in prestigious entertainment magazines captured the tension with a sense of measured intensity, as both actresses maintained a veneer of dignity even as the scandal deepened. Biographers have since noted that the affair had far-reaching implications, altering casting decisions and shifting the dynamics of studio power. While Reynolds and Taylor eventually found ways to navigate the storm of public opinion, the echoes of that rivalry continued to influence Hollywood's narrative of love and betrayal. The saga, rich with facts and figures drawn from detailed archival records, remains a stark example of how personal relationships and public personas could collide in an industry where every gesture was magnified under the relentless gaze of the media. George Raft versus Humphrey Bogart. George Raft and Humphrey Bogart became embroiled in a dispute that originated in the competitive world of tough guy roles, a rivalry that would shape the narrative of Hollywood's crime dramas. Raft, whose suave and understated demeanor set him apart, felt increasingly marginalized as Bogart's star power grew with each groundbreaking performance. The origins of the conflict can be traced back to the early 1940s when film executives began casting Bogart in roles that had once been Raft's domain. Archival materials and detailed accounts from studio insiders reveal that Raft's resentment was stoked by the perception that Bogart's portrayal of gritty, morally ambiguous characters overshadowed his own legacy as a suave gangster. Public opinion, captured in columns of leading newspapers and in retrospective interviews with industry veterans, noted that Raft's image was built on subtlety and natural charm, while Bogart's performances were characterized by a hard-edged intensity that resonated with audiences. On numerous occasions at industry events and film premieres, Raft's measured criticism of casting decisions was met with quiet nods of agreement from insiders who recognized the shifting tides in cinematic tastes. Biographical sources and film historians have since documented that the feud was not merely about roles, but also about the broader transformation of Hollywood's archetypes. As the studios evolved and embraced new forms of storytelling, The rivalry between Raft and Bogart took on a symbolic significance, representing the inevitable clash between tradition and innovation. Their ongoing conflict, as recorded in comprehensive film retrospectives, remains a potent reminder of how personal ambitions and shifting artistic paradigms could fuel legendary disputes on the silver screen. Mae West versus Paramount executives. Mae West's legendary wit and provocative persona clashed with the rigid expectations of studio executives in a feud that centered on the censorship and editing of her dialogue. The dispute emerged during the production of a controversial film in the late 1930s, when studio heads decided to shorten her famously risque lines in favor of amplifying the roles of male co-stars. Detailed studio memos and historical reviews recount that West's reaction was swift and unyielding, as she considered the edits an affront to her creative integrity. Public records from the time reveal that the actress, celebrated for pushing boundaries and challenging social norms, refused to compromise her artistic vision. Behind closed doors, heated discussions took place among executives who were torn between maintaining commercial viability and respecting the boldness that had made West a household name. Reports in influential entertainment magazines documented that West responded with a series of cunning retorts in interviews, deflecting criticism while subtly undermining the studio's decisions. Industry insiders observed that her defiant stance not only safeguarded her public image, but also sparked a broader debate about artistic freedom in Hollywood. Biographers and film historians have noted that the ensuing feud had lasting ramifications, influencing subsequent censorship policies and creative decisions across the industry. The clash between West and the studio executives remains a striking illustration of how the battle for creative control often led to conflicts that resonated far beyond the confines of a single film production. This memorable dispute, woven into the tapestry of Hollywood lore, endures as a testament to Mae West's indomitable spirit and her uncompromising commitment to individuality. Jean Harlow versus her studio hairdresser. Jean Harlow's brief yet explosive feud with her studio hairdresser over a disastrous haircut remains one of the most peculiar episodes in the annals of classic Hollywood. In the late 1930s, as studios churned out glamorous films and meticulously styled images of their stars, a single botched haircut became a symbol of personal betrayal and professional frustration. Harlow, whose platinum locks were as much a part of her identity as her sultry on-screen persona, found herself at the center of a storm when the stylist, renowned for his skill, delivered a result that fell dramatically short of the expected standard. Detailed accounts from studio archives and contemporary newspaper reports describe how Harlow's fury was both public and personal. The incident, occurring during the hectic filming of a major motion picture, was said to have taken place in the private makeup room of a bustling studio lot. Eyewitnesses recalled that Harlow's reaction was swift and severe, her sharp tongue and dramatic flair coming to the fore as she lambasted the hairdresser in front of an aghast crew. Trade journals and gossip columns of the era later recounted the debacle with a mix of incredulity and amusement, noting that the fallout extended beyond a single mistake. The stylist, once celebrated for his artistry, became the subject of scandal, with rumors swirling about subsequent acts of revenge that further tarnished his reputation. Film historians and biographers have since highlighted the incident as a striking example of how even the smallest personal slights could erupt into full-scale feuds in Hollywood's highly charged environment. The absurdity of the situation, immortalized in studio lore and whispered among those who worked behind the scenes, serves as a lasting reminder of the unpredictable and often volatile nature of celebrity dynamics in the golden age of cinema.